Derry had always known violence. It seeped into the soil, clung to the fog above the river, whispered through storm drains and abandoned houses. People who lived there sensed it without understanding it, an unspoken rule that some streets were better avoided after dark, that some disappearances were better not discussed too loudly. But this time, something was different. The first body was found in a quiet suburban home on the east side of town. The police initially assumed a break-in gone wrong. There were signs of a struggle, overturned furniture, a shattered lamp. The victim was a 17-year-old boy found in his bedroom. What unsettled the officers was not just the killing, it was the expression on the boy's face. His eyes were wide open, frozen in shock, but not terror. Something else lingered there, confusion, perhaps, as if he had not understood what was happening until it was already over. There were no balloons, no messages written in blood, no sewer grates disturbed nearby. This was not Pennywise's work. Deep beneath Derry, in tunnels that twisted like veins through the earth, something ancient stirred. Pennywise sensed the disruption the way a shark sensed blood in water. A feeding pattern interrupted. Fear wasted, flesh taken without permission. Someone else was hunting. Jeff walked alone through the streets that night. He had arrived in Derry 3 days earlier, drifting in like smoke. He did not know the town's name at first. He did not care. He only noticed how quiet it became after midnight, how the houses pressed close together, how the shadows seemed deeper than they should be. Perfect. Jeff moved without urgency. He never rushed. He liked to let the night breathe around him. The air here felt heavy, charged, as if the darkness itself were watching. He smiled. The house he chose was unremarkable. 2 floors, pale siding, a car in the driveway. Inside, a family slept, unaware that their locks meant nothing. Jeff slipped in through a back window. The kill was fast, silent, efficient. When it was over, Jeff stood alone in the hallway, listening. Somewhere in the distance, he thought he heard laughter, faint, echoing, distorted. He tilted his head. "Someone's awake," he murmured. Pennywise observed from afar that night, not in the shape of a clown, not yet. It watched from the darkness between spaces, from reflections that did not quite line up, from the corners of rooms where light failed. It followed the pale intruder as he moved through Derry, studying him. This human was wrong. He did not stalk the way prey stalked prey. He did not hesitate. He did not savor anticipation the way children did when fear blooms slowly. He entered homes calmly, like someone returning to a place he belonged. Worse, he did not react. Pennywise brushed against his mind, subtle at first. A whisper, a suggestion, a flicker of movement in his peripheral vision. Jeff noticed. He stopped walking. Slowly, he turned his head toward a darkened alley. "I see you," Jeff said softly. Pennywise recoiled, not because it was discovered, but because of how casually the words were spoken. The next disappearance happened near the Barrens. This one was different. 2 teenagers vanished walking home after dark. Their bodies were never found, but their backpacks were discovered near a storm drain. The police chalked it up to another tragic Derry mystery. Pennywise fed well that night. Fear was ripe, the kind that trembled and screamed and begged. But even as it fed, it felt irritation coil beneath its hunger. The pale intruder was still there, still killing, still taking what belonged to Derry. Jeff crouched on the edge of the Barrens, knife resting loosely in his hand. He watched the water ripple below, reflecting the moon in broken pieces. He could feel it now, not watching exactly, waiting. "Come out," Jeff whispered. "You're loud." The air shifted. A red balloon drifted into view, emerging from behind a tree. Then another, and another. Jeff stood. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward, bright colors, White face, red hair, a painted smile stretched wide. Pennywise tilted its head, mimicking curiosity. "Hiya," it said pleasantly. "You're new here." Jeff stared at it. Then he laughed. Not loudly, not hysterically. Just a quiet, breathy sound. "You're not a kid," Jeff said. "You're pretending." Pennywise's smile twitched. "And you," it replied, voice smooth, "are trespassing." Jeff walked closer. Up close, the clown was tall, taller than expected. Its eyes were wrong, too deep, too knowing. Jeff raised his knife slightly. "Are you going to try to scare me?" he asked. "Or are we skipping that part?" For the first time in a very long while, Pennywise did not immediately answer. They did not fight that night. They circled each other, testing boundaries. Pennywise shifted its shape subtly, its shadow stretching unnaturally, its smile widening, its eyes darkening. Jeff did not flinch. Finally, Pennywise stepped back, retreating into the darkness as if dissolving into it. "This is my town," its voice echoed. "You do not belong here." Jeff watched the spot where it vanished. Then he smiled wider. "Everyone belongs somewhere," he said. "I think I like this place." Beneath Derry, Pennywise descended into the tunnels, anger simmering beneath its hunger. The intruder was not prey, but he was not harmless either. He was a problem, and problems had to be dealt with, carefully. Above ground, Jeff walked deeper into the town, already thinking about the next house. The game had started. Derry reacted slowly to danger. It always had. People noticed patterns only after it was too late, after the police reports piled up and the whispers grew louder. Another body, another disappearance, another house where the light stayed on all night because someone inside could not sleep anymore. The town felt crowded with shadows. Pennywise felt it most of all. From the tunnels below, it sensed the intruder moving freely, too freely. The pale killer walked streets Pennywise had marked long ago, entered homes it had watched for years, disrupted carefully cultivated fear. This was not an infestation. This was an invasion. Jeff did not know Derry's rules. He did not know about the cycles, the sleeping years, the patterns of hunger and restraint. He only knew that this town felt alive at night in a way others did not. The air seemed heavier, as if the darkness itself leaned closer when he passed. He liked that. On the fourth night, Jeff chose a house near the outskirts of town. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where people believed distance made them safer. He slipped inside easily, moving through the rooms without turning on a single light. Halfway down the hallway, he stopped. Someone was already there. Not physically, not yet, but the presence was unmistakable. The temperature dropped. The walls seemed farther apart, stretched in subtle, wrong ways. Jeff grinned. "So you followed me," he whispered. The lights flickered. At the end of the hallway, a door creaked open on its own. Jeff stepped forward. Pennywise did not reveal itself immediately. It had learned better. Instead, it let the house shift. Floorboards groaned under Jeff's feet even when he barely touched them. The air thickened, pressing in on him. A sound echoed from somewhere above, footsteps that did not belong to anyone living. Jeff tilted his head, listening. "You're bad at hiding," he said. The hallway seemed to lengthen. The door at the end moved farther away with each step Jeff took. Pennywise was testing him, studying how he reacted when reality bent. Jeff kept walking. That alone annoyed Pennywise. The kitchen lights snapped on. Jeff froze, not startled, but alert. Standing by the table was a figure with its back turned. Tall, broad-shouldered, familiar. Jeff's smile faded slightly. The figure turned. It wore his brother's face. Same eyes, same scar near the eyebrow, same expression of disappointment. "Jeff," the figure said, "what did you do?" For a fraction of a second, something tightened in Jeff's chest. Then he laughed. "That's not right," he said. "He does not talk like that anymore." The figure's face twitched, warping subtly, the illusion struggling to hold. Pennywise felt irritation flare. Jeff stepped closer, knife raised. "You're guessing," Jeff continued. "You do not know him. You do not know me." The illusion collapsed. The kitchen lights shattered, plunging the room into darkness. Pennywise struck, not with fear, but with force. The air itself slammed into Jeff, throwing him across the room. He hit the wall hard, breath knocked from his lungs. Cabinets burst open, dishes crashing to the floor. Jeff slid down, laughing through the pain. "There you are," he said, standing again. "Took you long enough." From the darkness, Pennywise emerged, not fully formed, but closer than before. Its shape flickered between clown and something taller, sharper, less defined. This time, it did not speak. It lunged. The fight was brief and chaotic. Jeff moved fast, reckless. He slashed wildly, more interested in closing distance than defending himself. Pennywise retaliated with crushing blows that bent walls and warped space, forcing Jeff back again and again. Jeff landed a hit. The knife cut into Pennywise's side, not deep, but real. Pennywise recoiled instantly. That was not supposed to happen. It vanished, dissolving into shadow and sound, retreating through the walls and floors as the house shuddered back to normal. Jeff stood alone in the wrecked kitchen, chest heaving, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. He wiped it away with his sleeve. "That hurt," he said, sounding pleased. Below the house, Pennywise retreated into the tunnels, anger burning hot and sharp. The intruder could hurt it. That changed things. This was no longer about territory alone. Allowing Jeff to continue roaming freely risked more than lost meals. It risked attention, disruption, chaos Pennywise did not control. The intruder had to be removed. The next night, Pennywise set a trap. It chose a stretch of road near the old industrial district, isolated, poorly lit, surrounded by abandoned buildings. It lured a small group of teenagers there with whispers and sounds, letting their fear build naturally. Then it waited. Jeff arrived exactly when Pennywise expected him to. He appeared at the edge of the street, hands in his pockets, head tilted as he surveyed the scene. He saw the teenagers first, huddled together, arguing in low, panicked voices. Then he felt it. "You're getting predictable," Jeff called out. "That's sloppy." The streetlights flickered violently. From every direction, shapes emerged. Figures in raincoats, distorted animals, laughing faces stretching too wide. Pennywise multiplied itself, surrounding Jeff in a ring of movement and noise. The teenagers screamed and ran. Pennywise did not follow them. Its attention was locked on Jeff. Jeff laughed as the figures closed in. He charged. He slashed through one shape. It burst apart like smoke. Another grabbed him, its grip crushing, but Jeff stabbed blindly until it dissolved. The ground split open beneath him. Jeff fell hard into darkness, tumbling through a chute of wet stone and rusted metal before crashing onto solid ground. He groaned, then sat up. "Okay," he said. "That was new." The tunnels stretched out before him, endless and winding, walls slick and breathing faintly as if alive. Pennywise's laughter echoed from everywhere at once. "You should not have followed," it said. Jeff stood, adjusting his grip on the knife. "You should not have invited me." Pennywise attacked from all sides. The tunnels shifted, narrowing and widening unpredictably. Walls closed in, forcing Jeff to squeeze through tight spaces. The floor tilted, sending him sliding toward pits that opened suddenly beneath his feet. Jeff was hurt, cut, bruised, exhausted, but he kept moving. Every time Pennywise struck directly, Jeff fought back with reckless aggression, forcing Pennywise to withdraw and reposition. The battle dragged on longer than Pennywise intended. That was the problem. Above ground, the teenagers escaped and reached town. Sirens began to wail in the distance. Too much noise, too much attention. Pennywise hesitated. In that moment, Jeff lunged from the darkness and drove his knife into Pennywise's shoulder. The blow was shallow, but real enough to force Pennywise back with a hiss of rage. The tunnels trembled. Pennywise made its choice. With a violent surge, the tunnels collapsed between them, separating Jeff from its presence. Stone and concrete crashed down, sealing passages and burying pathways. Jeff was thrown back, buried under debris. Silence followed. When Jeff finally crawled free hours later, the tunnels were empty. No laughter, no movement, no presence. He emerged from a storm drain miles away from where he'd fallen, dragging himself into the night air. He laughed weakly. "Running already?" he muttered. But even as he disappeared into the streets, Pennywise watched from far below, wounded and calculating. Jeff was not dead, but he was hurt. And now Pennywise knew something important. The intruder could bleed. Derry noticed the change, not consciously at first, just a shift in behavior. People stopped going out at night entirely. Windows stayed locked even during the day. Parents kept their children inside without knowing why, inventing excuses that sounded thin even to themselves. The town felt hunted. Pennywise was no longer patient. It had been wounded before, but never challenged. The pale intruder had forced it to abandon traps, to retreat, to seal tunnels meant to last decades. That humiliation burned hotter than hunger, so Pennywise did what it rarely did. It fed openly. The next killings were not subtle. A man was found torn apart near the canal. His body left where it fell instead of being dragged below. A woman disappeared from a bus stop. Witnesses later claimed the streetlights exploded one by one as something moved through the darkness. Fear spiked. Screams echoed longer. Pennywise ate well. But it was not enough. Jeff was still alive. Jeff staggered through an abandoned neighborhood, one arm hanging uselessly at his side. His clothes were soaked, not just with rain. Every breath hurt. His vision swam at the edges. He laughed anyway. Blood loss made everything feel lighter, fuzzier. He liked that. Pain reminded him he was still moving. He broke into an empty house and collapsed against the wall, sliding down slowly. He pressed his forehead to the peeling paint and breathed. "Almost had you," he whispered. He stayed there until dawn. By the next night, Jeff was back on the streets, slower, meaner. He did not choose houses carefully anymore. He kicked in doors, shattered windows, dragged people out of their beds. Some tried to fight. He broke them. Others begged. He ignored them. He left messes now, not because he wanted attention, but because he stopped caring. Pennywise found him mid-kill. Jeff stood in a narrow alley, pinning a man against a brick wall with one hand while the other worked the knife. The man screamed until his voice gave out. Then Pennywise stepped out of the darkness behind Jeff. It did not announce itself. It grabbed Jeff by the back of the neck and slammed his face into the wall. Hard. Brick cracked. Jeff's teeth cut into his own cheek. He laughed through it, blood spilling down his chin. Pennywise smashed him again and again. Jeff dropped the knife. Pennywise wrapped a hand around Jeff's throat and lifted him off the ground. The pressure was immense, crushing, deliberate. Jeff kicked uselessly, fingers clawing at Pennywise's wrist. The man in the alley collapsed and crawled away, sobbing. Pennywise ignored him. "You do not belong here," it growled, voice layered and wrong. Jeff wheezed, eyes wide. Then he smiled. With a sudden jerk, he pulled a second blade from his sleeve and drove it into Pennywise's forearm. Pennywise roared and threw Jeff aside. Jeff hit the ground hard, rolling, gasping. Pennywise loomed over him, towering, its form warping, mouth too wide, eyes burning. It stomped down. Jeff barely rolled aside in time. The concrete cracked where Pennywise's foot landed. Jeff scrambled for his knife. Pennywise grabbed him again, this time by the arm, and twisted. There was a wet sound. Jeff screamed, not in fear, in rage. He slammed his head forward, smashing it into Pennywise's face again and again until Pennywise recoiled. Jeff collapsed to one knee, clutching his arm, laughing hysterically through tears. "That's cheating," he spat. Pennywise hesitated. Jeff was broken, but not finished. So Pennywise did something worse. It vanished. The next night, Pennywise hunted around Jeff. It slaughtered people near him, left bodies where he could find them, stole kills mid-act, dragging victims screaming into drains while Jeff watched helplessly. Once Pennywise appeared long enough to shove a terrified child into Jeff's arms, then disappeared. Jeff froze. The child screamed. Jeff threw them away like trash and screamed into the night, knife slashing at empty air. "You think that bothers me?" he yelled. "You think I care?" But his hands shook. Jeff snapped. He stopped hiding entirely. He attacked a crowded house party, forcing his way inside and cutting down anyone who came near him. People fled screaming into the streets. Police sirens wailed almost immediately. Pennywise watched from rooftops and storm drains, amused and calculating. Jeff was burning himself out. Good. The final confrontation began in the rain. Pennywise lured Jeff to an old slaughterhouse on the edge of town. Rusted hooks hanging from the ceiling, blood long soaked into the concrete. The place reeked of rot and iron. Jeff stumbled inside, eyes wild. "I know it's you," he muttered. "Stop hiding." The doors slammed shut. Lights flickered on. Pennywise emerged fully this time. No illusions, no tricks. Just towering, solid, furious. It charged. They collided like animals. Pennywise smashed Jeff into a hanging hook. It tore through his shoulder, pinning him there. Jeff screamed and thrashed, blood pouring down his arm. Pennywise leaned in close. It did not smile. Jeff spat blood in its face. With a snarl, Pennywise ripped Jeff free and threw him across the room. Jeff crashed into machinery, bones cracking audibly. He did not get up. Pennywise advanced slowly. Finished. Jeff coughed, dragged himself upright, and raised his knife with his good hand. "Do it," he rasped. "Come on." Pennywise lunged, and a steel blade plunged into its side. Deep. Pennywise roared and staggered back. Jeff had thrown it. He collapsed immediately afterward, smiling faintly. The slaughterhouse shook as Pennywise retreated, wounded and furious, melting back into darkness. Sirens wailed outside. Jeff lay on the floor, bleeding out, laughing softly. "Worth it," he whispered. Jeff did not remember how long he lay there. Time blurred into pulses of pain and cold concrete against his back. Rain leaked through the broken roof of the slaughterhouse, dripping onto his face in slow, mocking taps. Each breath felt shallow, wrong, like his chest no longer worked the way it was supposed to. Sirens grew louder, then quieter, then gone. Jeff laughed weakly. "So close," he whispered. "You almost finished it." He tried to stand. His body refused. Pennywise watched from far below the ground, coiled in the deepest tunnels, wounded more severely than it wanted to admit. The blade Jeff had thrown remained lodged deep in its side. It had not dissolved like lesser weapons. It hurt. Every movement sent a grinding sensation through its form. something uncomfortably close to pain. That infuriated it. But rage alone did not decide survival. Calculation did. Pennywise could go back, could finish the human while he bled helplessly on the slaughterhouse floor. The kill would be easy. But easy was not always smart. Jeff had done something dangerous. He had drawn attention. Police sealed off the slaughterhouse by morning. They found blood, a lot of it, drag marks, broken machinery, bent hooks, but no body. Jeff was gone. They never agreed on how. Some said he crawled away. Others swore no one could survive injuries like that. The report was filed under unknown, and the town did what it always did. It tried to forget. Jeff woke up in a drainage tunnel beneath a different part of town. He did not remember getting there. His shoulder was wrapped crudely with torn fabric. The wound burned constantly, a deep, pulsing ache that made his vision blur when he moved too fast. His arm hung uselessly, swollen and dark with bruises. He laughed when he realized he was still alive. "Guess you missed," he muttered. The laughter turned into coughing. Blood stained the concrete. Jeff did not kill for several nights. Not because he did not want to, but because he physically could not. He hid instead. Abandoned basements, crawl spaces beneath houses, empty storm drains. He slept in short bursts, waking constantly at the slightest sound. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of the slaughterhouse, hooks, concrete, Pennywise's shape filling his vision. He smiled through it. Pain sharpened his thoughts. Pennywise hunted differently now. It did not chase Jeff directly. Instead, it tightened its grip on the town. Killings increased in frequency and brutality. Bodies were left partially exposed. Screams carried farther at night. Fear thickened Derry like fog. Pennywise fed heavily, regaining strength, knitting itself back together piece by piece. The blade wound closed slowly, leaving something like a scar, an insult it would remember. Jeff felt every death, not emotionally, territorially. On the 6th night after the slaughterhouse, Jeff finally moved again. He broke into a house near the river. The door splintered under his shoulder. Inside, a middle-aged couple barely had time to scream before Jeff was on them. It was messy, clumsy, angry. Jeff staggered out minutes later, soaked, shaking, breathing hard. His injured arm throbbed violently, but he did not care. He tilted his head and listened. Laughter echoed faintly from the storm drain across the street. Jeff smiled. "There you are." Pennywise appeared on the opposite sidewalk, fully formed, watching Jeff calmly. "You should have stayed down," it said. Jeff wiped blood from his face with his sleeve. "Yeah," he replied. "You should have killed me." They stared at each other, unmoving. Cars passed at the end of the street, unaware. Pennywise took a step forward. Jeff mirrored it. Then Pennywise stopped. Police sirens wailed somewhere nearby. Pennywise vanished instantly. Jeff laughed and disappeared into the alleys. The town reached a breaking point. Curfews were imposed unofficially. Schools closed early. Parents slept in shifts. Rumors spread. Some spoke of a killer with a white face. Others of a clown seen in reflections in drains. A few spoke of both. No one connected them out loud. Jeff deteriorated. Infection set into his shoulder. Fever made his thoughts swim. His movements grew erratic, bursts of speed followed by long, shaking pauses. His smile deepened, cracked at the edges. Still, he hunted Pennywise. He followed signs, missing pets, disturbed grates, the lingering metallic scent in the air after a kill. Once, he found a tunnel entrance slick with fresh blood. Not his. He laughed so hard he nearly passed out. Pennywise decided to end it. Not quickly, not cleanly. It chose a night when Jeff was weakest. Jeff collapsed in an abandoned movie theater, slumping into a torn seat near the front row. The screen flickered weakly, showing nothing but static. He barely registered the footsteps behind him. A heavy hand slammed his head back against the seat. Jeff screamed as fingers dug into his injured shoulder, squeezing mercilessly. Pennywise leaned close, breath hot and foul. "You're finished," it growled. Jeff struggled weakly, blades slipping from his numb fingers and clattering to the floor. Pennywise dragged him up and slammed him against the screen. The fabric tore. Jeff's vision blurred completely. Pennywise lifted him higher. Bones creaked. Jeff's laughter turned into a hoarse wheeze. Then Pennywise paused. Jeff's hand twitched. A detonator clicked. Pennywise's eyes widened, and the theater exploded. The blast tore through the front of the building, shattering glass and throwing debris into the street. Fire roared through the lobby. Pennywise was hurled backward, its form ripping apart under the force. It screamed, raw, furious, as it dissolved into shadow and smoke, retreating instinctively into the underground. Jeff crashed through the screen and landed hard on the floor, unmoving. The fire spread. Jeff woke up in the rain. Again. His body was barely responsive. His ears rang. His skin burned. The smell of smoke clung to him. He rolled onto his side and vomited. He laughed weakly. Still here. He dragged himself away from the burning building as sirens closed in once more. Pennywise hid deep. The explosion had not killed it, but it had hurt it badly. More than it expected. Enough to force it into retreat, to conserve energy, to wait. The human was dangerous, unpredictable, not worth direct confrontation anymore. Not yet. Derry survived the night, barely. And somewhere in the ruins, two monsters licked their wounds, neither victorious, neither finished. The war was not over. It had only become personal. Derry stopped pretending. Police checkpoints appeared at major intersections. Helicopters circled at night, their searchlights cutting through fog and rain. The news stopped using the word incidents and started saying murders out loud. It did not help. Fear did not calm the town. It sharpened it. And deep below, Pennywise felt that fear thicken, rich and heavy. It fed carefully now, deliberately, avoiding excess. Every movement was calculated, every appearance brief. The human had proven one thing beyond doubt. He could hurt it. That changed the rules. Jeff moved like a ghost, burned, feverish, barely held together. He still walked the streets after dark, drifting between neighborhoods without pattern. His shoulder was stiff and swollen, the skin angry and red. He could not lift his arm properly anymore. His hands shook when he tried to grip the knife. He compensated by getting closer. Too close. One night, he slipped into a house already occupied, not by sleeping residents, but by something else. The living room lights were on. A family sat frozen on the couch. Mother, father, two children. Their faces were pale, eyes wide, mouths open in silent terror. They were not restrained. They did not need to be. Behind them, standing casually with one hand resting on the back of the couch, was Pennywise, not smiling, watching Jeff carefully. Jeff stopped in the doorway. For a moment, no one moved. Then Pennywise leaned forward slightly. "Look at you," it said quietly. "You're falling apart." Jeff's grin twitched. "Still enough," he replied. The father whimpered. Pennywise glanced at him, and in a blur of motion, snapped his neck. The sound was sharp and final. The mother screamed. Jeff lunged. The room exploded into motion. Jeff slammed into Pennywise, driving both of them into the wall. The children bolted, screaming, stumbling over furniture. The mother collapsed against the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. Pennywise threw Jeff off with brutal force, sending him crashing into a bookshelf. Wood splintered. Jeff hit the floor hard, stars bursting in his vision. Pennywise did not let him recover. It grabbed Jeff by the hair and dragged him across the floor, smashing his face into the coffee table. Glass shattered. Jeff tasted blood and laughed wetly. He slashed upward blindly. The blade cut into Pennywise's side again. Pennywise roared and slammed Jeff into the wall hard enough to crack plaster. "You do not learn," it snarled. Jeff spat blood onto the carpet. "Neither do you." Police sirens wailed outside. Pennywise froze. In that hesitation, Jeff drove his knee up into Pennywise's midsection and tore free, stumbling backward toward the door. Pennywise vanished as the first cruiser screeched to a stop outside. The mother was still alive when officers entered. Jeff was gone. That night marked a turning point. Pennywise realized something unpleasant. The human was not just dangerous because he could hurt it. He was dangerous because he attracted attention. Left unchecked, Jeff would burn Derry to the ground around them, drawing law enforcement, outsiders, investigators, things Pennywise preferred to avoid. Derry had to survive. Jeff did not. Jeff collapsed beneath a highway overpass, shivering violently despite the heat of his own fever. He pressed his back against concrete and laughed weakly. "Getting crowded," he murmured. His vision doubled. For the first time since coming to Derry, Jeff slept deeply. Pennywise did not waste the opportunity. It hunted Jeff not with illusions, but with precision. Storm drains sealed. Tunnel routes collapsed. Streets subtly redirected through manipulation of space and shadow. Pennywise did not chase, it herded. Jeff woke to the sound of footsteps, real ones. A group of homeless men surrounded him, armed with pipes and knives, fear sharp in their eyes. Pennywise stood behind them, unseen by them but very present. "Thought you could hide?" one of the men spat. Jeff stood slowly, swaying. "This is new," he said. They attacked. Jeff fought like an animal, desperate and vicious. He went down once, then again. A pipe cracked against his ribs. A boot crushed into his injured shoulder and he screamed, high and raw. He stabbed one man in the thigh, another across the chest. Then Pennywise stepped in. It grabbed Jeff from behind and slammed him face first into the concrete. Again and again. Jeff's laughter turned into choking gasps. Pennywise pressed its foot down on Jeff's back, grinding him into the ground. "Stay," it said. It vanished. The men fled, terrified. Jeff lay broken and unmoving. It took hours before he stirred. His body barely responded. Every breath felt like knives in his lungs. He rolled onto his side and vomited dark bile. He did not laugh. That scared him. For 2 nights, Jeff did not move. Pennywise fed lightly elsewhere, keeping watch, waiting for the human to either recover or die. On the 3rd night, Jeff stood again, barely. He wrapped his shoulder tightly with filthy cloth. His movements were jerky, uneven. His smile was gone, replaced by something tighter, more desperate. He did not hunt. He went looking. Jeff broke into the sewers deliberately. He followed Pennywise's territory markers, deeper than before, ignoring the pain screaming through his body. The tunnels grew narrower, older, walls slick with decay. He stumbled often. He kept going. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on." Pennywise felt him approaching and smiled. The final trap closed beneath the old pumping station. Pennywise let Jeff reach the center before sealing every exit. Concrete groaned as tunnels collapsed behind him. Water surged around his ankles. Pennywise emerged slowly from the darkness, larger than before, its form solid and imposing. Jeff stood unsteadily, knife raised with trembling fingers. "You're done," Pennywise said. Jeff looked around at the sealed tunnels, the rising water. Then he smiled. Not wide, not proud, just tired. "Yeah," he said, Probably. He lunged anyway. The fight was short. Pennywise caught Jeff mid-charge and drove him into the concrete wall hard enough to crater it. Jeff slid down, gasping, barely conscious. Pennywise grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Bones creaked. Jeff's knife slipped from his fingers and clattered uselessly into the water. Pennywise leaned close. This ends now. Jeff's eyes flickered. His hand twitched. The water around their feet began to bubble. Pennywise looked down. Too late. The explosives detonated beneath the station. The blast ripped through the tunnels, collapsing entire sections in a deafening roar. Water surged violently. Concrete shattered. Pennywise screamed as it was torn apart, forced to abandon its physical form and flee deeper underground, wounded more severely than ever before. Jeff was thrown into darkness, buried, crushed. Silence followed. Days later, rescue teams excavated the ruins. They found no bodies, only blood, only destruction. Deep beneath Derry, Pennywise lay dormant, damaged and furious, forced into premature hibernation. Above ground, Jeff did not return. Not that night, not the next. Weeks passed, then months. Derry began to heal, slowly, nervously, until one night, far from the ruins, a single house went dark, and laughter echoed faintly in the street. Derry believed it was over. That was the mistake. Months passed without incidents. No bodies, no disappearances, no laughter from drains or shadows in reflections that did not quite line up. Police presence eased. Curfews faded into memory. People started sleeping again. The town breathed. Deep below, something slept, and something else crawled. Jeff surfaced on a night with no moon. He emerged from a drainage outlet miles from the pumping station, thinner, slower, his movement stiff and uneven. His left shoulder was ruined, scarred, half-functional at best. One side of his face bore burns and cuts that never healed right. He looked worse. He felt better. Pain was constant now, a background hum that never stopped. It grounded him. Jeff pulled himself to his feet, swaying slightly, and laughed quietly. "Still here," he said. His voice was rough, scraped raw. He did not kill at first. He walked, street after street, neighborhood after neighborhood. He memorized the new Derry, the boarded windows, the repaired roads, the places where fear still lingered faintly in the air. He could feel it. Something sleeping. Something hurt. Jeff smiled. Pennywise dreamed. It did not dream like humans did. There were no images, no stories, just cycles of sensation, pressure, hunger, memory, the human's knife, the explosions, the damage that had not fully healed. It had gone dormant to survive, but dormancy came with risk. The town's fear had thinned, and then, movement. Pennywise stirred. Awareness seeped back. The intruder was alive. The first death after the silence was quiet. A single man, walking home late, pulled into an alley and never seen again. No spectacle, no display, just absence. Pennywise felt it immediately. Territory violation. Again. Jeff waited in the open this time. He stood at the edge of the barrens, knife hanging loosely from his hand, rain soaking through his clothes. He did not hide, did not move. "Come on," he murmured. "You always do." The water rippled. A shape rose slowly from the shadows, taller than before, heavier, movement stiff with old injuries. Pennywise did not bother with the clown this time. It showed itself as it was, scarred, angry, real. "You should be dead," it said. Jeff tilted his head. "Yeah," he replied. "You too." They did not circle, they collided. Pennywise slammed into Jeff with crushing force, driving him backward through mud and debris. Jeff hit the ground hard and rolled, barely avoiding a follow-up blow that cratered the earth where his head had been. Jeff lunged low, slashing at Pennywise's leg. The blade bit. Pennywise roared and kicked Jeff away, sending him skidding across wet ground. Jeff coughed, blood spilling from his mouth, but he laughed as he pushed himself upright again. "You're slower," he said. Pennywise grabbed him mid-laugh and smashed him into a tree. Bark exploded outward. Jeff screamed as his ribs cracked. Pennywise did not stop. It hit him again and again. Jeff's laughter turned ragged, broken by gasps of pain. His vision blurred. His knife slipped from his fingers and vanished into the mud. Pennywise lifted him by the throat. "This ends here," it growled. Jeff's feet kicked weakly. His hand fumbled at his belt. Pennywise tightened its grip. Then, a gunshot cracked through the night. The bullet tore into Pennywise's side. It howled and staggered back as more shots rang out. Floodlights snapped on around the barrens. "Police!" Jeff dropped to the ground, gasping. Pennywise hesitated. That hesitation cost it. Jeff scrambled through the mud, grabbing his knife and dragging himself toward the water as bullets tore into the ground around him. Pennywise took hit after hit, not lethal, but disruptive, painful. Too much attention, too many witnesses. Pennywise vanished into the river with a violent splash, dissolving into darkness beneath the surface. Jeff collapsed at the edge, soaked and shaking. Hands grabbed him. Rough. Human. Jeff woke up in restraints. The room was bright, white walls. The smell of disinfectant burned his nose. His body screamed in protest when he tried to move. He laughed softly. "Hospital again," he murmured. No one answered. Doctors spoke in low voices behind glass. Police stood by the door. They did not know what they had. They never did. Pennywise watched from deep below. It felt the human's pulse again, contained, surrounded, restrained, vulnerable, and more dangerous than ever. The town had seen too much. One more public incident would end everything. So Pennywise waited. Jeff did not stay long. He never did. The power went out just after midnight. Screams followed. By the time backup arrived, 2 officers were dead and Jeff was gone. Restraints torn free and blood smeared across the floor. He laughed as he ran into the night. The final confrontation came at dawn. Not underground, not hidden. At the edge of town, where the land dipped and cracked, where the old scars of Derry lay exposed. Pennywise rose fully, no masks left. Jeff stood opposite it, barely standing, body ruined, smile cracked and bleeding. Neither spoke. They charged. The impact shattered stone. Jeff drove his knife deep into Pennywise's torso and was lifted off the ground in response, slammed down again and again until his vision went black at the edges. Still, he stabbed. Again and again. Pennywise screamed, a sound that shook the earth, and tore the knife free, impaling Jeff through the side and pinning him to the ground. Jeff coughed blood, laughed weakly. "Guess this is it." Pennywise leaned down, towering. Yes. It tore Jeff apart quickly, no ceremony, no delay. When it was done, it stood alone, breathing heavily, hurt, but alive. Derry felt it. The weight lifted. The air changed. Something terrible had ended. They never found Jeff's body. They never found Pennywise either. Years later, Derry would tell itself it was safe. And maybe it was. But sometimes, late at night, someone would hear laughter echoing from far away. And sometimes, just sometimes, a pale smile would flicker at the edge of the dark. Not hunting. Not yet.